The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, we'll give it one more minute before we kick this off. All right, well, I think we can get started. If people start to join on, that's fine. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So as many of you know, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And you may have seen your account manager send out some security tips throughout the month, or you may have even seen our security posts with different statistics on our social media sites, as we are posting one a day throughout the entire month. So kind of in the spirit of all this, we thought it would be appropriate to host a webinar on how to protect your data and business continuity. So we've partnered with Datto for this event. And if you're not aware, Datto provides cloud managed devices that enhance your environment. So it could be your networking equipment, backup equipment, or a SaaS solution. They have a plethora of offerings, and many of you may have some of the Datto equipment in your office now. But today we'll be focused on Datto backup for both physical and cloud environments. So with that said, I'd like to introduce you to your Datto speaker for the day, Eric. So Eric, please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marissa. And thank you all for joining us this afternoon and participating in this webinar. We've got some great content for you that I will be sharing. So we're talking about your war on cybercrime. As mentioned, I am Eric Torres, the Director of Channel Development for here at Datto. And real briefly about Datto ourselves, we are the world's leading provider of MSP delivered solutions, meaning we are simply a tool that our partners like Tekdoc use to make sure that your networks are always up and running, that if anything bad happens to your data or it becomes unavailable, that we can then make sure that you can get back to business and taking care of your clients. We are a global organization with data centers and offices all throughout the world, but for everybody joining us today, everything is based here in the U.S., headquartered in just outside of New York City, with two different data centers, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. So, getting right into it, in thinking about backup, what normally people think about in terms of backup are the what if scenarios. What if there's a fire or a flood or a tornado? And yes, these things do happen, but the likelihood of them happening are pretty few and far between. But there's something that happens to every single network, no matter how large, how small, no matter how much you invest in it, and that's people. People are your greatest risk. People are the ones that uh, go to the wrong websites, that open the back door by clicking a link in an email. People are the ones that affect networks much more than anything else, be it a hardware failure or a natural disaster. So, in knowing that people are your greatest risk, that's what we need to change the mindset to knowing that there's bad things that could happen if we allow them to happen. So I have a couple examples that I will share with you. And this first one, if anybody recognizes this picture, it's a little bit old. The story is about a year and a half old now, but this gentleman was the head of communications for all of the Hawaiian Islands. And if you remember this story from a while back, there was an alert that went out over every broadcast, every cell phone, every radio wave, television wave. It went all out to everybody saying that there were missiles heading towards the islands. Everybody take cover. So you can imagine the pure panic that this caused. And I'm not sharing this because it was a mistake. This gentleman accidentally set off that warning system. That's not the mistake that I'm sharing. What I am sharing is this: when I hear a story like this, I immediately start digging into it and figuring out, okay, how did this mistake happen? Who was this person? So I actually went to this person's LinkedIn page. I found out his name and went to his LinkedIn page. This was his actual LinkedIn profile picture. And I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, how could this mistake happen? Here he is, he's all proud, and he's sitting on his desk. He's in charge of the communication systems for all the islands. But the mistake that he made, if you actually zoom in on his picture, he has his password taped to his monitor. So he's in this industry just like I am, but it's human nature. We do things to try to make our jobs easier and faster and be more productive. And it's simple things like this: taping a password to your monitor, hiding it under your keyboard. These are things that potentially could leave a door open for the bad guys to attack. Now, speaking of these attacks, let's take a look at the anatomy of the internet. And what we think of the internet isn't all that it is. The surface web is where we play. That is the Facebook, the Google, CNN, all where we get our news. Everything is in the surface web. But 96% of the internet is below that. 96% includes the deep web, which is databases. Those are the things that you need access to: financial records, medical records, things like that. And then the dark web, that's where the bad guys play. That's where pretty much you can find just about anything you want on the dark web, including ransomware and malware. And that's exactly where this code lives. So, in looking at the evolution of these cyber threats, there is a few numbers that I want to share with you. And I don't want to bore you with stats and numbers, and that's not my goal here today. But there are a few that do stand out to me. And I'm not going to read through all of these, but the sum that stand out the most to me is cybercrime will cost $6 trillion by next year, meaning these bad guys are making a ton of money doing this. We can get very good at the security side of it to keep bad guys out, but eventually they're going to get through in some cases. And in those cases, we need a B plan. We need a plan saying, if something happens to my data, I know that I'm protected because I'm just going to flip it to a different location and continue to work. That's what Datto is all about. And we also know ransomware is up 180% just from 2 short years ago. So this is not slowing down by any means. And it's something we just unfortunately, have to just deal with. And we're going to have to accept that the bad guys are constantly going to be knocking on all of our doors. We know that ransomware is king. Just in last year alone, it cost organizations over $75 billion worldwide. Now, that is taking into account the ransom ask itself, but also downtime, because that's the most expensive part. If businesses are down, that's lost productivity, that's overtime for rebuilding networks, that's all the things that go into account aside from your public image. If you lose data, if you're down, what do your customers think about you? So with that, I actually do have a poll built into this. Um, so let me launch this real quick. It's on the screen as well, but what is the average cost of downtime per hour? And I have a couple of, it's a multiple choice poll, but for those of you that are here, if you would like to participate, um, and I will give you a hint. It's definitely more than $10,000. But let's see. I will now close this poll, and 33% think it's up to about $25,000, with 67% saying over $50,000. And for 67% of you, you are absolutely correct. Some research data that Datto goes through: 98% of organizations say a single hour of downtime can cost upwards of $100,000. Now, this is a spread of businesses of all sizes. If you go down to the small and medium sized business size, yes, it may be less than 100 grand, but you're still talking about tens of thousands of dollars, depending on how how large your organization is. So when we talk about downtime, just think of it in the sense of not just that ransom ask, but all the things that go into it, the consulting fees, the forensic investigation, if you're trying to figure out how you got attacked, to the actual lost productivity, to rebuilding the entire network and buying new hardware. These are all things that we need to think about when it comes to downtime. Now, I also have an example of ransomware that is my favorite strain of ransomware, which is pretty bad to say, but being in the industry, we come across all these different things, and this is one that I like sharing with people. This is a particular strain of ransomware that tests our own morality. This particular strain is pure evil genius, as you can see on this screen. It was actually called Popcorn Time. And what this strain of ransomware did is it gave the victims a choice. You could either pay the ransom and get your data back, or if you sent that ransomware to two other people, you get your data back for free. It was essentially outsourcing the criminal activities. The bad guys sat there and they wrote this code, and the code worked, and then they said, you know what? Let's just have the victims become the criminals themselves. Let's have them do the dirty work for us. What if they start spreading it? And people actually did start spreading it. People were posed with that question: do I pay, or do I forward this email off to some people? And they indeed did. And as the bad guys were watching this, they noticed that this ransomware was spreading all over the world very quickly. So they released an update to the ransom ask so it could be translated into every single language. So what I'm trying to point out is that these aren't just somebody in their parents' basement that's sending out ransomware hoping that it works. These are full-fledged companies. These are organizations that are trying to make it more user-friendly, that are writing code that works, that is absolutely pure evil genius, and outsourcing and thinking outside of the box of how to even make more money. So ransomware, when it does attack, in this case, like Popcorn Time, it shuts down your entire network at a moment's notice. Your network's just gone, and you have to rebuild that if you don't have a disaster recovery plan in place. So rebuilding a network, let's just start with the bare basic. How long does it take to rebuild a server? And I have another poll for you. So let me launch this. So how long does it take to rebuild a server? And I've got this in terms of hours and then actual days. So 2 to 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours. Is it 6 to 12? I mean, are we talking about a full day of being down, a week? And these are the things that also we need to think about when it comes to being down is really realistically, how long can I be down? How long can I be without my network? So let me close the poll, and the results are yes. So most people are on the right track, but I can tell you it's from experience, the best case scenario is 8 to 12 hours of being down. And let me explain to you best case scenario. Best case scenario means you go down and there's somebody sitting next to you with all of the hardware ready to go to just flip that switch and start transferring data. And in the real world, that never happens. You don't have an extra server just sitting there waiting to be deployed. You don't have that IT person there just waiting for a moment's notice to spring into action. So, best case scenario, you're down for about a day, day and a half. And that's just transferring data and files and applications. More than likely, you're probably going to be down for several days, if not a week. And what that comes down to is ordering new hardware if new hardware is needed, and then having your IT provider start building that and putting it all together. All of this means money and downtime, and it is extremely expensive to be down. So before joining Datto, I used to work for a company in the Midwest that was much like Tekdoc, and I would hear this all the time from my clients. I already have a great backup solution, or my potential clients. I have a great backup solution. My data is already living in the cloud. I'm safe. It's not on in my building at all. It's somewhere else. It's in a data center. Well, I can tell you that is exactly what the city of San Francisco thought. So the San Francisco, if you remember this story, and this is dating back a little while too, but it's a prime example of what can happen. Their whole transit authority got hit with ransomware. And we hear about these stories because they're big and they're in the news. San Francisco, Atlanta, New Orleans, all these governments that have gotten attacked, hospitals that have gotten attacked. But in this case, I'm using this example because there is an example of a clear-cut difference between a backup solution and a business continuity solution. So San Francisco went down. All of their kiosks to buy tickets went down in a moment's notice. And their wonderful IT department said, we'll just restore from our backup solution. Nothing against them. They had a great backup solution. Their data was living in a data center elsewhere. And their IT department said, okay, we're down. Let's just go back and get that data and rebuild it. It's easy. Well, as a result, with all their staff and all their unlimited capabilities, they were down for 2 days to rebuild their networks because they had to physically go to the data center, pull those servers out, bring them to their production facility, plug those servers in, and get back up and running. Now, these bad guys, they knew they were very good at what they did. They didn't choose just any 2 days to do this. They picked the two most heavily traveled days in San Francisco, Friday and Saturday after Thanksgiving. They knew exactly when to attack. And they posed the question to San Francisco. And they asked, at the time, it was a $30,000 ask. They said $30,000 would give you your data back. But the thing is this, if you give your data back, or you give into the ransom to these bad guys, they're criminals. They don't have to give you your data back. And that's the fear. Just because you pay them doesn't mean they have to return the favor and or return the gesture and pay you. And that's what San Francisco was worried about. They're saying, well, there's no way we're going to pay these guys. Let's just restore our data. And as a result of being down for 2 full days, they provide 735,000 rides a day at a cost between $1 and $2.25 per rider. So you can see where I'm going with this. Total revenue loss, that's just ticket sales. That's not overtime. That's not rebuilding the network. That's not forensic investigation. Just revenue alone, somewhere about $3 million for the network being down for 2 days. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. You may be thinking, well, I'm not the city of San Francisco. I'm not Atlanta. I'm not New Orleans. I'm not a. Maybe you're not a hospital. Maybe it's just a smaller business network that you have. It doesn't matter. These bad guys are going after networks of all sizes because they know that your data is valuable to you. And that's the first thing that we need to understand, that all of us are vulnerable when it comes to this. We know that ransomware is running rampant. There's no way we're going to be able to stop it. It's a full-blown epidemic, much like what we're seeing right now, but on the technical side, and it's been here for years and it's not going away. That's where Datto comes in. That's where having a true business continuity solution right now is extremely critical in today's technology age. So let me explain to you, and I'll keep this extremely high level, what Datto solution really does. So on the left-hand side of your screen is your network, whether that's a virtual network or your physical servers, your workstations, your laptops. That is what you're working on. What the Datto solution is an appliance that lives on your network. And what we're doing is we're taking snapshot images as little as every 5 minutes of everything on your network. All of your folders, your files, your applications, everything. And then we're backing it up. We're keeping it on that appliance that lives on site. And then we're storing it offsite. We're sending it to our primary data center in Pennsylvania. And then that data center gets replicated to another data center in Utah. So at any point in time, there's 4 copies of your data. Your actual data that you're working with on your servers, on your laptops, your workstations. That data is then being backed up to our device. So that's your second copy of the data. And then 2 of our data centers. So 4 copies of your data at all times. And we can do this for companies of all sizes. All of the features of this that I'll be sharing with you in a second, it's available if you are a 2-person organization on up to an enterprise size company. The same exact features that used to only be available for the huge companies of the world are now available for businesses of all sizes at a very competitively priced option. So we can fit businesses of all sizes. But that's not it. That's not all that data does. So data also includes ransomware detection. And I want to be very clear that this isn't prevention. You have wonderful security solutions in place, firewalls and security solutions that keep the bad guys out and keep your doors locked. But what happens if they do come in through an unlocked door? We need to know about a ransomware attack the moment it hits. So that's exactly what we do on all of our backups. So because we back up your data in as little as every 5 minutes, what we're able to do with those small backup windows is run tests every 5 minutes against that data, every 15 minutes, every hour, however you decide. We're running tests against that data to look for a version of ransomware. So we're running analytics between their two most recent snapshots in time, and we're looking for those footprints of ransomware. Ransomware, when you get it, it's a it encrypts all of your data at a moment's notice. But how it does it is it changes your file structure, completely changes it. All of your naming conventions are wiped out, and it's gibberish in the file names. And we're able to see that from one backup to the next, saying there were major changes in the naming conventions of all of this data. Something is definitely wrong. And then we alert Tekdoc of the suspicious activity. Red flag, there's something going wrong right now. You're going to want to look into this. And then we'll also notify them of the exact moment in time to restore to say, this is the moment just before that bad thing happened. So when I explain what Datto does in very high level terms, I explain it in a sense like this. It's rewinding the hands of time. If you experience a ransomware attack, let's go back to 5 minutes before the attack happened. If your building catches on fire, 5 minutes before the building catches on fire. If you have a hardware failure in one of your servers, 5 minutes before that hardware failure happened. So we can do this in a number of different ways and make sure that all of your data is protected at all times. Now, here is the last poll of the afternoon. How many small to medium-sized businesses fell victim to a ransomware attack? And is it 1 in 50,000, 1 in every 10,000 businesses, 1,000, 100 businesses, 1 in 5? It can't be 1 in 5, possibly. But how often is this really happening? And when you look at the results, a lot of you are on the right track here. Again, 25% of you are thinking 1,000, 1 in 1,000, 25%, 1 in 10,000. It's actually much more than that. 1 in 5 small businesses have been attacked of some sort. Now, I want to clarify that there are ransomware attacks, and then there are ransomware attacks that are prevented by the security solutions that you have. That's taking into account both. So some of your in these cases, 1 in 5, it's the security software keeping the bad guys out and keeping you safe, but still some of this is getting through. So the point of this is saying these guys are it's like a machine gun just going at it constantly on networks all over. 1 in 5 they're attacking. They are taking casting a wide net and just seeing what happens. That's what these bad guys are doing. Again, they do not care what you do for business. They do not care about if you're a health clinic or a healthcare clinic or a law firm or a manufacturing company. They just know that your data is valuable to you and that in most cases, you're willing to pay for it. So in thinking of it this way, just don't think of things in the traditional backup sense. That's how San Francisco thought of it. We'll just keep a copy somewhere else. That's not business continuity. Business continuity is taking into account all of the data and being able to get that data back in a moment's notice. So here's how I will explain business continuity and what it means for you. So first, I want to explain what is not business continuity. Business continuity is not cloud only, as we're seeing with San Francisco, and it's also not a local only copy. If your data is just living within your walls, what happens if there is that natural disaster of a fire or flood or tornado? And it's also not a file based backup, meaning we're just backing up bits and pieces of your network rather than everything. That's not business continuity. business continuity is, and I will warn you, I'm in this industry, I'm in sales and marketing. Here's a warning for industry buzzwords. It's a hybrid cloud-based backup. That's a fancy marketing term for saying multiple copies of your data. We've got data living in data centers. We've got data living on your network. We've got multiple ways of using this data now that it's being protected. It's an image-based backup, meaning we're backing up everything. We're backing up all of your files, your folders, all of their drives. We are backing up even the operating system, your Windows operating systems on your laptops, on your servers. We're backing up your iTunes. We're backing up all of the kids' pictures, your desktop background, your shortcuts. We're backing up everything so that when you need it, when you need to get back to work, it's exactly how you're used to working. Nothing is different. That's an image-based backup. Here's another industry buzzword warning. We deliver superior RTO and RPO. What that stands for is recovery time objective and recovery point objective. And I've got a few more slides on what that actually means, but essentially that's the cost of downtime. If I go down, how much is it going to cost my business? And I've got an exercise that I'll share with you about estimating what that downtime costs. And then this is the kicker, and this is what makes Datto a business continuity solution. We eliminate downtime through virtualization. So virtualization, what is it? Continuity, you get that if you go down, you got to get back up as soon as possible. But how does that really work? How does virtualization and continuity come into play? And here's the easiest way. I'm a pictures guy, especially when it comes to technology. If you can't draw it for me, I can't really comprehend it. So incident virtualization is as easy as this. You're working, and for whatever reason, you can no longer work. Fire, flood, ransomware, something happens that prevents you from accessing your network. What we do is we go to the Datto appliance living on your network, and we spin up an exact same image of your workstation, of your server, of anything backed up by Datto. We get it to a virtualized state exactly how you're used to using it. Same files, folders, same desktop background, all the kids' pictures, everything is on there so that you can continue going about your day as if that bad thing never happened. Now, the benefits, some of these are quite obvious. It reduces downtime. Your downtime is as little as 6 seconds. I can bring back a workstation in about 6 seconds. If you get ransomware, I literally flip a switch and I can bring it right back. It helps with your cost of downtime, recovery time objective and recovery point objective, which again, I'll explain. I've got another image to help explain that. And the benefit, the biggest benefit is we can do this locally from that on-site Datto appliance or from the Datto data center. So if you get ransomware, we'll just go to the Datto appliance that lives on your network and turn that appliance into your network. If the whole building burns down, we can spin up your entire network from our data center, giving you login credentials to everything that you need so that you can go about your day working from wherever you want to work from, working from anywhere. So we can do this both locally or from the Datto cloud. Total data protection. That's what we're about. We're about backing up everything possible and keeping all of that data. One of the other main benefits of Datto is we offer unlimited data retention, especially for those if you're in the healthcare industry, which I know some of you may be. We keep that data until you tell us you no longer need it. That helps keep anybody that's on the Datto, that's being protected by Datto, under the compliance that they have to adhere to. So let's go back. I mentioned the industry buzzwords: recovery time objective and recovery point objective, RTO and RPO. Okay, Eric, what is it? How do you explain this? And again, I'm a pictures guy. So here's the picture. In the middle, you have your disaster. Something bad happens. Ransomware attacks the network. RPO, recovery point objective, both of these are time. Recovery point objective is saying backwards. How far back in time am I going to get my data? How much data am I willing to lose? If you had to restore to yesterday's copy of your data, you're essentially saying you can lose a day's worth of data. If you have to go back to last week's copy of data, you're saying I can lose a week's worth of my data. So Think about that. How far back in time are you going to go? Would you prefer? Is it near instant? Is it a few minutes ago? Is it last week? I hope it's not last week. And then downtime. How much downtime can I experience before I start getting really concerned about the business itself? Is it half hour, an hour? Is it a half a day? Could you be down for a full day? If you walked into the office today, nothing worked. Could you be down a full day? What about 2 days or 3 days? We know how long it takes to rebuild a server. In best case scenario is 8 to 12 hours. That's if everything's there and ready to go. But what if we have to order new parts? Or what if we have to transfer a ton of data and we're down for 4 days? Down for 4 days could be detrimental to a business. So, in understanding these two concepts, RPO being how far backwards in time we're willing to go, how much data we're willing to lose. Recovery time objective is forward thinking. How long can we be without our data? How much downtime can my company experience? Now, in knowing that, we've put together a recovery and downtime cost calculator. And I'll share with you a story about this calculator. So we had this idea of quantifying this. How do I sit down with a business owner, with a CFO, with an office manager, and talk about the cost of downtime without having something to walk them through? And we went to one of our brilliant developers and said, "Here's an idea. Let's estimate what downtime cost. Here's all these studies, all these numbers that we put into this." And this very extremely bright individual just shook his head and he's like, "Yeah, absolutely, I can do this." And he went down into his hole and he plugged away for 3 hours, 4 hours, 2 days. 3 days later, he comes out of his hole and he goes, "I got it." And he showed us an 18-page Excel file, 18 different tabs on this calculator, and I'm just going, no, I don't have that much time to sit down with a business owner and talk about downtime. And he went back into his hole and he came back out and he had it done in 10 questions, which is absolutely amazing. And it's such an easy calculator to use. I encourage everybody to use this. It's completely free. There's no catch with any of this, and it's simply 10 questions. And I'll walk you through this very quickly. RTO and RPO, recovery point objective, recovery time objective. This is time, and how long can your business survive without access to your IT systems, and how many hours of work are you willing to lose? Meaning, how far back in time are you going to recreate, and are you willing to lose that data? Then we ask about your data itself. How much data do you have roughly? You can guess. 2 TB, 3 TB, 10 TB. You enter that into here as well. How often are you backing this up? In most cases, most companies that I come across today, it's once or twice a day, maybe 3 times a day for some of them. If you're doing it more than that, fantastic. Put in more than that. Put in how you're backing up your data. How long does it take to initiate your recovery process? If you go down today, who are you calling? How quickly can they be on site to start helping you? Because many of my clients in the Midwest, they were in rural areas. It may take an hour before an engineer can even be on site. So that is time that you have to take into account. And then how do you currently store your backups? Is it a local copy or is it a cloud only copy like the city of San Francisco? Because the city of San Francisco had so much data that it was less time for them to physically take the data and move it rather than pull it down and copy it over the wire. So just think of it that way, local or cloud, and then fill in this, and you can adjust this on the fly and do that as well. And then last set of questions is about your business. How many employees are affected? What's the average annual salary per employee? Again, you can guess on this. What about the average overhead cost per employee? I will share with you this. It's roughly half, a little bit less than half of the average salary. So you could even break it down by the hour. If your average wage per employee from the highest paid to the least expensive, if it shook out to say $30 an hour, roughly $15 an hour is for your insurance, your benefits, the lights, your insurance on the business, everything you can think of. All of your overhead expenses is roughly half of your average wage. And then if you want to enter this as well, what's your business and your business's annual revenue? Because if you're down for an hour, we take into account you can't bill during that hour. You can't accept payments during that hour. So we take all of that into account. And then what this calculator does is it walks you through your current solution, saying, right now, based on what you entered into this as your current RTO, your current RPO, what your backup situation looks like right now. In this case, it's going to tell you the time between backups. So backing up your data twice a day for, and this was the case of a small network. I believe I had 2 terabytes of data in there, roughly $24,000. And then it'll tell you on the Cirrus, on the Datto solution side, how long in between backups, and then how long it would take to restore that data, get you all back up and running. But we also take into account lost productivity. So, for example, a lot of people that I talk to, if you're a lawyer, you're unable to bill for that hour. Healthcare, you're unable to bill for that hour as well. So we take all of that into account. So for all of this, for a needs assessment, which is number one, more so than the downtime cost calculator, have the experts at Tekdoc Solutions in there to just look at what you have. And they're the experts in your area to make sure that everything is up and running, not just from a backup and business continuity standpoint, but just your network in general, and making sure that things are working properly for all of your users, especially right now today with the work environment's changing from being in the office to being from home. So you can see behind me, I'm actually in a hotel right now for the first time being out on the road, which is quite exciting. But talk to them for all of your needs. They can walk you through this calculator. They can talk to you about how they protect networks and what they can do for you. So send an email to the email address listed on this screen. Take note of it, or I'm sure the fine folks at Tekdoc Solutions will be reaching out to all of you guys. And with that, there is plenty of time for Q&A, and I should have mentioned that in the beginning. There is on your GoToWebinar platform, there is a section to submit questions. These are anonymous. It only comes to us. So it doesn't go out to the broader group, but feel free to enter whatever questions you have. And on behalf of Tekdoc and Datto, I just want to thank you all for your time. And once again, that email address to take that next step and have a network assessment is right there on the screen for you. So with that, let me end the slideshow and get to some of these questions that I see coming in. So first question is, can you explain fully what you can back up and what you cannot? Sure, absolutely. Great question. We can back up any Windows device. We also have a Mac agent too. If you have MacBook Pros on the network, we do have an agent that lives on there. So what we have is an agent. It's agent based. It's just a software that we put on each device that we back up, be it one of your servers or any of your workstations. That acts as the transfer from the data that's on that device to the Datto appliance. So we can back up all flavors of Windows, and not just your workstation operating systems, but servers. So your Exchange server, SQL server, your domain controller, anything that you have, we can certainly back up. Next question is, where are your data centers? Yes, I did mention they're bi-coastal. So one in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Actually, that one is our primary data center, and we actually helped build it. So that is the first of many data centers that we're in conjunction with a couple of different providers, but building it specifically for Datto and for partners of ours like Tekdoc Solutions. So that's all that's there. It's not a case where we're sharing data centers with the likes of the Googles or the Microsofts of the world. This is specifically for you, for your data, and we adhere to all of the compliances, and we prove that. We send you whatever you need. If you're in the healthcare industry, the legal industry, financial industry, we adhere to all of that. So our primary data centers in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and then everything from there gets replicated to the secondary data center in Salt Lake City. And we do that by design. We do it by design in each country that we support. We want it bi-coastal so that, heaven forbid, there is an attack somewhere, something bad happens on one half of the country, data safe because we have a copy of it on the other half. And if both go down, there is something very major happening where your data is probably the least of all of our worries. Yes, bicoastal data centers, and that's just the other 2 copies of it. Just remember that there is the copy that we have living on your network as well. Last question, and I always get this as well. How much does this cost? That question happens at every presentation I give, and that is something that depends on the size of your network. And the way that the solution is specced out, it's based on the number of servers you have, how much data you have, but it's a very flat rate price, so it's not something that fluctuates where next month it's higher, next month it's lower. It's nothing like that, and it varies so much that you have to have a network assessment. You have to have the pros in there to look at it. But rough estimates I can share with you. We're talking, depending on size, a few $100s to a couple thousand, depending on, and that's per month, but that's depending on how much data you have. And typically, it's very competitively priced to other solutions that are out there. So I think that is it for the
Great.
questions.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation and everyone that took the time to attend. It's been really informative for all of us. And thanks to Dado, Tekdoc has honestly been able to save the day for many clients who have this device in place. You know, we're able to save them a lot of time and money and ensure the security of their data. So, you know, if you want some more information on kind of stories that came, you know, from Tekdoc clients, feel free to reach out to your dedicated account manager or myself, and we can talk, you know, more about this in detail. So I just want to thank everyone for taking the time. And I did want to also just note that our next virtual event is going to be around what you need to know to make your website ADA compliant. And this should probably run around mid-November, but we'll definitely send out some information on that soon. But again, thanks all for attending, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
Bye-bye.